Hi, welcome to this webinar about looking at 2024 and setting yourself up for a powerful 2025. So we're going to look at reflecting, we're going to look at rewiring, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. And then we're going to talk about results, because at the end of the day, we're looking at results. Results can be in the physical, results can be in the emotional, results can be in the mental, and of course, if you're a spiritual person, results can be in the spiritual world. My name is Dr. Barbara Schwark. I am the CEO and president of Clear Intentions International. And believe it or not, this marks my 25 years of coaching. I started Clear Intentions in December of 1999, and I've been coaching thousands of CEO professionals, thought leaders from all over the globe, all walks of life, different industries. And I specialize in helping them become more resilient and being aligned with who they are and the goals that they want to achieve. So that's a little bit about me. You can check me out at clearintentions.net. If you liked this webinar, please sign up for my YouTube channel, and I'm glad that you're here. So let's dive in. Why is it important for us to reflect? I think that's obvious because oftentimes when we reflect, we look back, we have the opportunity to evaluate what worked and what didn't work. And here's actually my first point that I want to make about reflecting. Reflecting doesn't mean judging. Reflecting means evaluating. And this might sound like a word game that I'm playing with you, but there's actually a distinct difference between evaluating and judgment. Evaluating is when I look at something and I say, that worked, that didn't work, that could have gone perhaps a little better. And I often, when I evaluate, I talk to my clients about workability. When I'm judging, I'm actually not just saying that worked, that didn't work. I'm adding something, in that little bit of what I'm adding is not such a little bit, it's actually saying, and that was wrong. And as soon as I'm adding that, and that was wrong, what I'm doing is I'm creating an extra layer, or sometimes a few extra layers of emotional weight to it that I don't need. And that extra emotional weight makes it difficult for us to do corrective action. This morning, I had an experience with somebody where I didn't perform or didn't do something that was expected of me. And the first thing that happened is that I was yelled at, and being yelled at allowed me to be immediately go into the defense, and I couldn't actually do the corrective action because now I felt judged. And that when we feel judged, we often, that comes with a lot of connotations. And it took me a while to move myself into the neutral and say, yes, that didn't work as well. There was an option for me that if I would have chosen that option, that would have worked better. So we are reflecting because we want to evaluate. We want to look at, according to the goals that we had, the values, who we are, authenticity. Did that work as well as it could have, or were there things that we could have chosen and sometimes we couldn't have chosen? Or now that we have this information, we could choose in the future that would make it better. In order for us to reflect, and we kind of need to know who we are, what our goals are, what our intentions are, because that really helps us to evaluate or reflect according to a benchmark. So if you didn't do that, no problem. I encourage you to set values and goals and intentions for 2025. And if you go into my YouTube channel, you'll find that there's a lot of information that I post about that. And you certainly can also contact me, and I'd be happy to send you some information. And a quick way for you to do it is sort of look at the different months. You can, look at January, February, March, and go through the months and maybe find a highlight of that month that would help you to sort of evaluate, or look at the big events that happened this year. What did you go on vacation? Was there a family event? What happened around your birthday or your children's birthday, or your mom, your dad? So it's like you can look at big events. You can also look at accomplishments that you had in your company, or you can look at things that you would say are failures in your company and evaluate them. And sometimes it's good to do a little bit of both, where you look at the values and the goals that you had, and you look at the events, and then you just map it out. Or if that doesn't work for you, just take a piece of paper, find some time, and just sort of like reflect on the year. Today's December 30th, and maybe tomorrow, as most of you are probably not working, or you're working less, or even the day after, maybe you can find half hour, 45 minutes, and just create some space where you can reflect on what happened in 2024. Another good way for you to do it is to look at the things that you were proud of in 2024. Maybe there's 1, 2, 3 things, or maybe even more things that you were proud of. And, when I reflect on my own 2024, one of the things I'm really proud of is the way that I decided to bring some closures to some of the things that were incomplete in my life. I had some relationships where I felt like I needed to do some cleanup, do some apologizing. And there were some relationships also that I wanted to elevate. So I was able to do that. And I'm proud of that, because it wasn't easy. It's not always easy to look at things and say, well, in that relationship, I didn't behave in the best possible way. That didn't work as well. And maybe at the time I didn't have better tools, or I couldn't do it any different. But, now that I do, I can actually go back and apologize. So that's one of the things I'm proud of. I'm also proud of the way that I extended myself to my friends and to my family. I really, I gave to the fullest, and I'm proud of that, because I made some sacrifices, and it's okay to make sacrifices. So I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of there's some proud coaching moments that I had this year. So for me, as I am sort of reflecting with you as we're talking about it, there's certainly some things that stand out. And you can come up with more than 3, and then maybe that you can highlight 3 and really look at them and say, these are the things that I'm proud of. And for those of you who are in business, and you have your own business, or you're running a company, and for those of you who are maybe more looking at the personal, you can do both. You can have 3 in your personal life, and you can have 3 in your professional life, and then just, compare, like, what was it about that made me feel so proud. Then also look at some challenges that you had in 2024. For me, I live in Israel, so living in a country where that's at war, it's a continuous challenge for me. And I can look at, and there's a big sigh, because there's so much to say about it. I can look at what am I proud of, and I'm certainly not proud of any of this out of circumstances, but maybe there's a moment of proudness that I have in the way that I deal with the situation, the way that I extend myself, the way that I am compassionate, and my conversations that I have about it. So that's a challenge. And I had some health challenges this year. And am I proud of the way that I dealt with them? Yeah, to some extent. I did some things that were very challenging for me, and I just, surrounded myself with the support that I needed in order to make it happen. And so I can look at that and say, yeah, that was challenging, but I managed, and then the way that I managed. So progress is something that we want to acknowledge, because it's critical for our future. And as we're looking at the events, or looking at the month, or the goals that we had, and we're part of them, and we're looking at the challenges, be sure that you end up focusing on the progress, because progress is all that matters. When sometimes we feel that we didn't make progress because we turned the wrong way, or we ended up going the wrong way. The other day I went somewhere that I usually don't go to, and even though I had like Google Maps or Waze, I missed my turn twice. And, that didn't work so well. However, I still made progress, because in the end I still got there. So who cares if I did a detour? So sometimes it doesn't matter And can we learn from the mistakes, the detours that we did, and use that still and have it count towards progress? Because in the end, every step that we take, doesn't matter if it was to the left, to the right, or even backwards, we still made a step. And that's what we want to acknowledge. So that's about reflection. Now let's talk about rewiring. And for those of you who know me, you know that's my big thing. I love to talk about rewiring because the more I talk about neuroscience and neuroplasticity, the more I realize that that's really where it's at. When we look at the way that we programmed ourselves, programming meaning your response to circumstance at the time. So when you were 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years old, 25 years old, and maybe even later, things happened to you. You were in certain situations, and then you responded in a certain way. And oftentimes, the way that we responded is something that happened to us early on. I have a daughter; she's just about 4, and I have a son who's 9 years old. And you can already see the way that they respond, the way that they program themselves. My son is easily frustrated with things, and so then he starts to cry because he's frustrated because he's not getting it the right way. And my daughter is also easily frustrated differently, but she cries when she doesn't get things, when she wants them. So these are the way that they are programming themselves. It's not that I told them that they need to be that way. So either, they came with it in their DNA, it's part of their character, it's part of their experience, it's part of the karma that they have to learn. And so all of us have that. And when we're experiencing something in the present, because when I have my goal and I'm stepping outside my comfort zone, there's always inevitable for me when I meet the discomfort, or I meet the way that I have wired myself because I'm responding in this particular way. So years ago, I used to take the seminar and people were talking about receiving feedback and the way that we receive feedback as people. Some people go like this. Some people go, they complain. Some people get angry. Some people run away. So we have the ways that we respond to feedback. And most of the time, it's already something that is programmed inside of ourselves. So when we get our evaluation at work and we get our 360s, and yes, I understand that employment laws have a little bit to do with it, we respond because some of us are actually not able to hear positivity. We cannot take a compliment. And no matter how kind and generous people are to us, we can't hear it. We can only hear the negative because our self-conversation that we have is super, super negative. By the way, these are also all parts of the reflection process in terms of how do you respond to circumstance. So what does it mean to rewire ourselves? Rewire means that we do something to change our neuroplasticity. What's neuroplasticity? It's basically the way our brain works and makes things happen. Neuroplasticity happens on all levels of consciousness. Of course, it's in the physical. It's about breathing. It's about the way that we move ourselves in the world. But it's also about our thought process and about emotionality, and certainly about our survival. And when I tell you that only 10% of us is intellect, meaning the part of our brain that is talking about analytics, is talking about our words, is talking about understanding things, then you will quickly realize that that other 90% of our brain is actually what's the driver. So when the unconscious and subconscious part of our brain is actually determining the way that you respond to circumstance, it becomes obvious and perhaps understandable that we want to reprogram ourselves. The question is always, how do we do it? How do we reprogram ourselves? How do we rewire ourselves? And in some ways, it's as simple as looking at the tracks that you put down on as deep level as possible, neutralizing them, and then adding new tracks. Meaning, if I previously looked at something and I thought I wasn't good enough and I can't do it, then neutralizing that and then reprogramming myself to say, yeah, I actually can do that and I'm good at it. Sports, and especially professional, the professional world of sports and athletes, and and the Olympians, and when you look at the football players or soccer players, they have known about the power of visualizations and rewiring for a long time. And athletes have been using affirmations and they've been using visualizations forever. And believe it or not, that's actually one way that you can rewire yourself, because what that will do is will change your neuroplasticity over time. Now, what we know from today is that that's kind of a slow process. However, it's a way to stay consistent. So if you want to rewire yourself, and a simple way for you to do it without having to go, see a coach or somebody like that, is to think about a positive affirmation, something that's actually truly positive, frame it in the ing form, in the sense of that there's movement. I am going to, or I am believing in, or I am loving, because that means it's not absolute. There's actually movement in it. And then find a way to affirm something about yourself that you want to change. Perhaps it could be, I am learning to be a good communicator, or I am trusting in myself. So those are some basic statements that apply to all parts of our lives, whether it's personal or professional, me as a mom, or me as a friend, or me as a as a coach. So and then you want to say that every day, preferably 100 times without changing it, for 32 days in a row. Why 32 days without interruption? Because that will then allow your brain to actually go, oh my God, she's serious about this, and start to lay down new tracks. There's a book that was written by Hal Williamson, I think is his name, The Power of Greatness. I will post it in the notes, and he talks about affirmations and how he used affirmations to lose weight, and the neuroscience behind the affirmations and why that actually worked. The guy's from Pittsburgh, so you probably can Google it as well. So misalignment happens basically when we have a belief that is going against what we want to do or who we want to be. And misalignment can happen on the conscious level. That is because a value of yours doesn't match up what you're doing. So if I value peace and I go to war, then I have a problem. Or if I value freedom, one of my core values actually is freedom, and I'm living in a country where it's hard to get in and out, then you can see how I'm having trouble with that. My values actually being impeded upon, because where I'm living and how I'm living, I'm not able to live that as freely or as fully as I actually want to. So obviously, in that case, there's a misalignment, and we can actually see it. Oftentimes, what's much more problematic is when the alignment happens on the unconscious or subconscious level, and I can't see it. I love to tell the story of where years ago I used to work with somebody who had a, let's say, for a lack of better description, a fast food chain. And the person themselves was into organic food and gluten-free, and there's a mismatch. And here I have these restaurants that I am supposed to be the manager of, and my job is to make sure that we earn a lot of money with them, but yet I don't really believe in the product that we're selling. So we had to do some adjustment in order to find a way for the person to deal with that and expand their values and look at the nuances. So, and that wasn't so obvious. It looked like it was obvious, but when you dig deeper down, you will find that oftentimes in your unconscious and subconscious, you will have beliefs that you don't really want to know. And this is how we ties to reflecting, beliefs that you don't really want to know about that really impede. Like, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve to have a good life. I don't deserve to make money. I am too not smart enough. I am not, et cetera, et cetera. So, and some of us, we've done a lot of work and we've worked on these, and yet there's still some remnants of where we think we're not good enough, or we have the habit, the habitual practice, or notion of us is just to, go to that place because that's what we're familiar with. So I do kinesiology, and it's a 2,000-year-old tool that comes from the Far East. And I use the kinesiology to find out what the different levels of consciousness are telling us. And you can use a pendulum, you can use biofeedback, you can do meditation, you can do hypnosis. There's other ways to do it, but I think kinesiology is really great because it's a cooperative test, and it's based on the premise that when you say something or look at something that is your truth, that the muscle will have a positive response. And when you say something that you don't believe in, it's not your truth, you're not aligned with it, the muscle will be weak. There's some studies that have been done to show that muscle testing is actually a real thing and it works, even though it gets quite a bit of negative publicity when you look about it or you read about it on the internet. So in my experience, having used it for about 30 years now, it works really well and it can be really accurate. And how I use it is I basically have my client make a statement: I'm okay with making $1 million, or I'm okay with being a manager, or I'm okay with managing a team of 15 people or 1,500 people. And then we see where that alignment takes us, or that I should say, not the alignment, but where the muscle test takes us. And often we find that if there's a misalignment to some percentage to some extent, that it has to do with some prior experience and prior belief that was created based on something that happened. And we look at it, we make the connection, and the connection usually goes way beyond the language or what the person will remember. Consciously, the body will always remember. And then we do we neutralize it, we connect it. It's sort of like the old days when you had those old phones and you had to connect people with a wire and plugins to certain places. So we connect all the different places in our body, and then the body goes, oh my God, I get it, I can understand it, I can let it go. I call that neuro-emotional coaching, and it's something that I created. It was based on many different techniques that I then took and I developed them further. So for me, rewiring is important because I think that's the best way that you get results, and the fastest way that you get results, because oftentimes it's actually the emotionality that holds you back. And it's not like you have a character and that's how you were born and that it can't be changed. No, we have experiences that happen to us. We molded ourselves in this particular way, and then we have ways of showing up in 2024. So you want to really take a look at, and maybe this is part of the exercise that you can do at this end of the year, and look at, what are some of the limiting beliefs that I'm aware of? And then maybe you can get yourself some space, and then you can meditate or put yourself in a place of relaxation, and then go even deeper and see, what other limiting beliefs do I have that I'm actually allowing myself to see. So, and then it's powerful that if you're not able or interested in doing some kinesiology around that, and sign up from neuro-emotional coaching, which I highly recommend, then one of the things that you certainly can do is you can do some forgiveness, and you can look at the judgments that you may have around those limiting beliefs, and then just be kind and generous with yourself and hold to yourself and love yourself, and let them go, and see if you can then rephrase them for yourself. Sounds easy, and I know it sounds easy, but it's not that easy to do. It's difficult to do, but it can be done. So that's one of the ways that you can actually rewire yourself through forgiveness, kindness, and generosity with yourself as you're looking at your limiting beliefs. So now we come to the results part. So we reflected, we're going to see some things we liked, some things we didn't like. Then we're going to look at, what do I have to rewire about myself, and so that I can get what I want. And then I come to my intentions, my methods, and my goals, my success framework. And again, I want to tell you, on my YouTube channel, there's a lot of things that I shared about that. and there's some handouts, some goal sheets that I can share with you if you write to me. And I want to distinguish between three things. So intention, goals, and methods. Intentions for me is the qualitative part of your goal. It is the how do I want to feel? It's the being part. How do I want to show up? Because you can do something and you can be in a terrible mood and you didn't enjoy it at all. Or you can do something and you were in a completely different mood and you loved it. It was fun. It was great. It was amazing. So first I want you to think about, how do I want to feel? How do I want to feel when I'm doing this webinar? Do I want to be cheerful when I have a good time? Or do I want to have fun? Do I want to be funny? And then my goal comes next. That would be, I want to present value. So what is your goal? Do I want to be, well, no, I'm talking about being, do I want to run a 10K under an hour? Do I want to make $1 million? Do I want to lose weight? Do I want to travel? Do I want to buy a house? What is it that I want to do? So first I have the qualitative part of the goal, and then I have the quantitative part of the goal, which would be the actual factual, hardcore numbers or things that I'm going to do. And if you have a goal, I highly recommend that you have SMART goals, which means they're specific, they're measurable, they're aligned, they're realistic, they're time bound, and so that I can actually tell you what I'm doing, and you can look and check, and I can be accountable to somebody and say, yes, Barbara did it, or Barbara didn't do it. So think about a moment about your intentions, and oftentimes the intention will change depending on what the goal is, but sometimes it won't. And so for me, my intentions are often aligned with my values that I have. I have 5 values that I've defined for myself. Every once in a while, I look at them and I see if they're still true. And if you haven't, like I said in the beginning, if you haven't done your values exercise and you haven't defined them, you want to take a moment to do that. I say 3 values, at least, no more than 5, and go and take a look at your life and what you have created and how you have shown up over and over again. And then the values will be obvious. And you can even rate them if you want. My values are spirituality, love, making a difference, freedom, and courage. So, and they can be categories so that you can elaborate on them. So I can explain to you, what that actually means to me, spirituality. So oftentimes my intentions will be, they come from my values. So there would be a similarity in that. And that's important for me because, what I experience day in and day out is something that I live. And the results that I produce on the outside are they're snapshots, or they're snippets, or they happen and then it's over. So it's like, it might take a long time to accomplish a goal, but I am the constant part of that. And I'm always taking myself to get this goal. So I want to enjoy the journey and the process as much as me actually crossing the finishing line. And then I want to write them down. I have my sheets, I have my categories, and I'm very specific. I'm going to have my intentions, my goals, my methods, how I'm going to reach this, by when, how, and I put it in basically my spreadsheet or my sheet. And then I look at it from time to time and I see, am I actually doing it or not doing it? And what do I need to course correct? Because sometimes there's a new goal that shows up that's overarching to the one that I had defined for myself. And it's important that you're flexible enough and that you can recognize it and see it, that, like, God forbid something would happen, that I need that to be a priority before I actually take care of that, because that's no longer important, or something else that showed up. But we want to play with that because sometimes we're procrastinators and we don't want to do it. And we shove other goals there because they're more fun or they're easier to do. So that you want to be true to yourself and realize when you actually need to change the goals, or when you're actually just procrastinating and using it so that you don't have to do it. Okay. What else I want to talk about? So that's a lot of what I wanted to share about. There are nuances about this where I can share with you more in depth about how to create intent, how to create affirmations. I talked a little bit about that, and how to define your values and how to look at your intentions. But what matters most is that you get started, or you look at the process that you currently have and you ask yourself, is that working? Am I actually reflecting? Do I set some time aside to reflect? Can I see where I'm not aligned? What can I do about getting aligned? Can I do some meditation? Can I do some affirmation? Can I look at my outdated beliefs? Can I upgrade them? Can I let go of them? And then how can I plan? Do I know who I am? Where do I want to go? What do I know? And it doesn't have to be perfect. A lot of us, we think we need to have 20 hours or 10 hours for this process in order to get going, but we don't. Just take half hour and sit down with yourself. And then, I have a book of where I write things down, and then get the book out again. And then you look at it again, and then you take it and you move forward what you've written so far. Because what I said in the beginning as well, what matters is that you take one foot and move it in front of the other, and then you take baby steps. They don't need to be big steps. It's important that when we feel frozen, when we feel like we're in isolation, when we feel like we can't move and it's too much and we can't do it, that we do one little thing. And that could be sometimes to get up and to brush your teeth. And if you're really good with that, getting up and brushing your teeth, then take that and acknowledge yourself and see how you can take that action step that you're doing every day and map it on something else that you're doing, because you're good at something. We're all good at something. We all have God-given talents. And what is important is that we build upon the things that we have. So I'd love for you to put in some goals or some thoughts that you have in the comments of what you noticed. If you're watching the replay of that, comment of what you learned, or perhaps a limiting belief that you have that you wouldn't upgrade, or anything that you want to share with us about this process. I want to say, as we're wrapping up this year of 2024, be kind to yourself, love yourself, be generous with yourself, and acknowledge yourself for just being who you are. It's not oftentimes, or let me say this in a positive way, who you are and how you show up in the world makes a huge difference. What we do is what we do, but the energy and the love and the light that we bring to other people's lives and that we bring to our own life matters the most. So share your light at this time, at this special time of the year, and let it shine bright. Thank you for showing up today. If you're interested in learning more about clear intentions, or you're curious about neuroemotional coaching and you want to have an alignment session, go to clearintentions.net. And on the homepage, you can do a couple of things. You can sign up for a free workbook on how to deal with your emotions better, but certainly you can also sign up for a complimentary session. And I'm happy to show you neuroemotional coaching, the thing that changed my life profoundly and that has impacted thousands of clients all over the world. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year. Take care.